Claude is the most powerful tool for businesses right now. But there's a problem. There's really no guidance for the best way to set up Claude for your business. So most businesses skip building the right foundation and end up barely scratching the value of what Claude can do. As a former senior data scientist now running an agency on Claude, here are the 7 levels that finally unlock what AI can do for your work. By the 7th level, Claude has access to your apps and data, automates your work without you writing code, and keeps improving itself across your business. Let's start with level 1, the 3 modes of Claude. There are 3 ways to use Claude, and the easiest way to understand them is to see how working with AI has evolved. First came chat. You bring your work to it, pay something in or describe a problem, and you get a response you still have to act on yourself. And it's great for quick answers or just going back and forth with you to help you develop your ideas. Then came Claude Code, and the AI companies built this for engineers first because writing software turned out to be one of the things that AI was best at. But people who weren't engineers, like marketers or salespeople, started to use these tools for their everyday work. And it turns out the AI coding models were amazing at basically any knowledge work task. The only catch is that coding tools can be intimidating. They're built for people who write software, not everyone else who doesn't happen to be a software engineer. So the AI companies built a friendlier version that anyone could use. And for Claude, that's Cowork. And Cowork runs the exact same AI engine as Claude Code underneath it, but it just wraps that same AI engine in an interface made for people who don't write code. So if you're not an engineer, which is about 99% of the population, all you really need is Claude Cowork. You point it at your files and apps, tell it the outcome you want, and then you come back to actual finished work instead of the chat mode where you're just getting answers and now it's on you to take all the actions. And this isn't only Anthropic, by the way. Every major AI company is racing to copy it. OpenAI just repositioned their tool Codex for the same non-engineer audience, and now non-engineers are the fastest growing group of its users. The whole industry is moving in a direction where you can get the benefits of AI without needing to code at all. So now you know which mode to use, and for most of you that's going to be Claude Cowork, but Claude Cowork out of the box only knows what's public, the same public information on the internet that every other AI tool also has access to. So if you use it right out of the box, you're just going to get the same answers as everyone else and be average. So people go chasing better tools or the newest model that everyone's hyping up. But then you'll find yourself on a treadmill just jumping between AI tools and relearning how each one works, instead of building the thing that gives you your long-term advantage. When everyone has the same AI tools, the unique expertise and context that only you can give is your long-term advantage. And that's your AI brain. You just need to build this out once and you own it forever. And it works with any AI tool that's out today or the ones that come out next year. You might have heard this called your context, your knowledge base, your second brain. We're still early in the AI wave, so there are a lot of different ways that people are referring to this concept. In this video, we're going to cover the AI brain in 3 pieces: your instructions, its memory, and your knowledge base. We're going to walk through this in the sequence in which I recommend you create these files. Starting with instructions. So these come in 2 parts. First is your company brief, the file that Claude reads automatically, and this is called the Claude.md. This is a short high-level overview of your business, who you are, what you sell, who you serve, and a map of where everything else in your AI brain lives. And because it's just a plain text file that you own, the same company brief works in any other AI tool. So the same document, although we're talking about Claude today, will also work in OpenAI's Codex tool. Second is your company profile. These are the deeper files that Claude opens when it needs to go further than just your company brief. If it's writing a new landing page for one of your offers, it's going to tap into your brand voice and know exactly what kind of phrases you like to use, what you don't use, what tone that you're looking for, rich examples of your writing, and your company profile will just naturally grow over time. You may have files about your specific services and offers, or another file of your ideal client profile. Who exactly is your ideal client? What kind of titles do they have? Where do they work at? What are their top pain points? What are their problems? How do they speak? What are examples of things that they've said to you? All of those can live in your ideal client profile. So the brief keeps Claude oriented at just a high level, and then the company profile is all their deeper files that it can tap into whenever it needs to. The next piece is memory. As you work, Claude automatically picks up on how you like things done and saves it for next time. You can tell it once something like always check the contract before sending an invoice, and then from then on, it just does that. You don't need to set this up manually at all. You just tell Claude and it'll take care of it. And the great thing is that these are just saved locally as text files on your computer, so you can always go in if it saved something incorrectly and delete it or just edit it yourself. And the last piece is your knowledge base. These are the documents your business already runs on. Things like your SOPs, your standard operating procedures, your proposals, and examples of your best past work. These are going to be organized by workspaces, so you have one workspace for each part of your business. For example, I have a client's workspace for my client work. Videos is where I script and plan videos like the one you're watching now. LinkedIn is where I run my LinkedIn from. And then I have an operations workspace where I just keep all my back office type of work. And each workspace works like a mini operating system for that function. So you'd organize any templates or SOPs or notes on what's happening into folders within that workspace. And this is one of the parts that I think a lot of people aren't talking about, but is extremely valuable. You should have 2 folders within each of these workspaces that Claude is filling out itself as you work. A decisions folder that logs every choice that you make, and a change log, which is exactly what it sounds like, basically a history log of all the changes and sessions that have happened within that workspace. So when you're working on your marketing, for example, Claude can just pull from your marketing setup and doesn't need to pull from the entire business every time. And we're going to put a bookmark in those decisions and changelog folders because those are going to come back and be important when we get to the last level. And here's the fastest way to set this all up, because I know it might sound like a lot if you're learning all this for the first time. I have complete templates of all the files, the company brief, the profile, and the entire workspace operating system. So feel free to grab those at the AI Workflows Academy. You can find the link in the description. And I try to make it as fast as possible. So you can download the template, open it up in Claude Cowork, use Claude on your phone, and just turn on voice mode and then start narrating everything about your business and have it ask you questions. And then it'll customize the template to be specific for your business. And you could have the first version of your AI brain done in 20 minutes. Now, Claude's answers are going to be tailored for your specific business instead of giving you generic answers that it's also giving everyone else. And you can stop re-explaining yourself every chat because it'll remember what you told it in the past. Like a new hire, Claude can't get to work until you hand it the logins and access to the systems that you use in your business. Which brings us to level 3. Connectors allow Claude to directly access the apps and tools that you use every day. So you can stop copy and pasting 50 times back and forth between your apps. And there are 2 ways to set up a connector. First is through the official connectors within the Claude app, which you can find in the Customize menu on the left panel. These are built-in ones for the apps you already use, things like Gmail, Calendar, Notion, Slack. Just select the connector you're interested in, for example, Notion, and then you're going to put in your Notion login, and then you're connected moving forward. And the second way is for everything else, any tool that doesn't have a native connector yet. That's where MCP comes in, and you might have heard this before. Think of it as just a standard plug like a USB. It lets Claude connect to almost any app. You just look up your tool's MCP, paste in the link, sign in, and you're connected in just about a minute. And let me show you that second one because it's the part most people miss. So I use a time tracking tool called Rise. It doesn't have a native connector, so I just looked up Rise MCP setup guide, found the URL from Rise, which by the way, make sure you're not copying some random MCP that you don't trust, added it as a custom connector within Claude, and then now Claude can just access the data whenever I talk about relevant information. Here I asked for a visual breakdown of how I spent my time over the last 7 days. And without me even saying to use the tool Rise, it knew to pull the data from Rise because that's where my time tracking data lives, and then builds this chart in just a few seconds. And of course, this is just scratching the surface, so I could turn this into a live dashboard. I can make it an automated email report. You can really take it in any direction once you connect everything. And that's what connectors give you. You have your native ones for your common apps, MCP for everything else, and now Claude can plug into any tool that your business runs on. Outside of connectors, there are 2 types of data that Claude can reach: files and databases. And it's important to understand when you should use each of these. A file is a document Claude reads top to bottom. Your SOPs, your brand voice, your past proposal, and these are documents that don't change often. So a file is exactly right for this sort of stuff. The trap is using files for everything, including the stuff that changes every day. Your client lists, your pipeline, your content calendar. If you save all those as files, Claude is going to keep reading old information and pull that into its responses. And that'll just get frustrating. And that's what databases are for. A database is structured, so Claude just pulls the rows that it needs, just like how you would filter a spreadsheet. And they can be live, so when you close a deal or update a task, Claude would automatically see that change right away without you needing to re-upload anything. And by the way, Claude doesn't just read information from these databases, it can easily add new rows of information or clean up any messy data. And also, databases are just easier to take in at a glance. Being able to quickly scan and just see where your pipeline's at can be much easier when you have a visual database database instead of scrolling through dozens of text files just to figure out where things stand. So the rule is use files for things that don't change often and are pretty static, and then use databases for things that are constantly changing. And let me show you. I can ask Claude to use my brand voice file and my hooks database to draft 3 posts using proven hooks that are written in my voice. It reads my voice guide, which is a saved file, and then connects to the hooks database in my Notion to give me back my 3 content ideas. And that's where level 4 helps. So think about our new AI employee. The brain gave it your instructions, its memory, and your knowledge base. Connectors gave it access to your apps and your live data, but it still doesn't actually know how to do your work. And that's where skills come in. Skills is a task you teach Claude how to do once, and then it runs that same way every time. It's basically an SOP for your AI, which stands for Standard Operating Procedure. And by the way, you can trigger this entire workflow with just a single command. Here's a workflow that I'm guessing you run a version of every single morning, and it's probably one you don't even think of as a workflow. You check your calendar for your first meeting, you check if you got important emails, you see if you got a message from your team. None of this is really hard, but it is scattered work, and 20 minutes of your morning goes by without actually getting any focused work done. That entire routine is a workflow, and once you map out the steps that you take, you can hand them to Claude as a skill so it can automate the entire process. And here's a simple test for what to turn into a skill. If you catch yourself doing it more than once a week, it's worth saving. Here's mine. I call it my daily brief. It checks my calendar, pulls my tasks, scans my inbox, and any messages from my team. Then it hands me this short brief that gives me my top priorities, what's overdue, and then my mins. And this min section here is my favorite part. It stands for most important next step. AI is great at handing you a pile of ideas, but it's easy to get lost into what to actually do next. So my brief always ends by pointing me at that one thing that matters most right now. It's a framework that I've personally liked and used for years now, and now I've got AI as an always-on coach to help me actually stick to it. And look, I can always disagree with what it's suggesting I do. If it doesn't feel right, I can just tell it and then just adjust until I'm happy with the focus. And here's why building skills actually matters. It's not really about saving just 20 minutes. It's that you automate the repetitive work that drains you so your time goes to the parts of your job that you actually enjoy. And the work stops living in just your head so that when you're out, for example, someone on your team can get a job done exactly like you would, and the team can just keep moving forward. So you get your time back for deeper work or just being away from your desk more if that's what you're looking for. And just like the brain, you never need to build this by hand. So you just walk through your work with Claude and then tell it to save this as a skill. By the way, if you want the template for exactly how I have my daily brief set up, you can find that free in the AI Workflows Academy linked below. Alright, a skill lets you automate a workflow in Claude and other AI tools as well. But there's a big problem with sharing skills. A lot of the times, if you share a skill with someone on your team, it's not going to actually run for them. And the reason that some of your skills won't run properly is that they depend on specific connectors, like certain tools or custom databases to get the work done. That problem is exactly what plugins solve. You can think of a plugin like buying something with batteries included. You don't need to dig around or buy extra parts to get it to run. That's what plugins do for skills. It packs the skill together with the connectors and files that it needs all in one folder. So when you share a plugin across your team, they can immediately download it, install it into Claude, and everything will just work. Here's an example of one that I built for my marketing work. So I call it Elevate Marketing, and it has 3 skills inside. One that helps me plan my content, one that helps me with my script writing, and then the last one repurposes my scripts into captions for each platform, including the correct call to action and hashtag strategy for each one. So none of these would work on their own because they rely on being connected to things like my hooks and lead magnet databases within my Notion connector. So this plugin bundles the Notion connectors and databases with those skills. So for anyone on my team, I can just hand them this plugin and they can start getting work done. And you build a plugin the same way we built everything else so far in this video. You just tell Claude which skills and connectors that you want to turn into a plugin, and then it'll just walk you through the process and build it for you. All these skills are great, and if you use them well, you can get your work done 5, maybe even 10 times faster. But pretty soon you'll notice something. You're going to become the bottleneck in your work. Every skill still waits on you to start it. Then when it's done, it waits for you to review the work. So, what if your most important work was able to run without you? That's a scheduled task. So now you already know what a skill is. You ask Claude to run a skill and then it completes that workflow. A scheduled task can run that skill on a schedule instead of waiting for you to kick it off. And the part that most people miss is that you don't actually have to reinvent anything for the scheduled task. In the instructions, you can just call a skill that you already have built by name. And here's the order that I would recommend. Build a workflow as a skill first and run it by hand a few times back and forth until it's reliable and you're not really finding yourself making any tweaks. Then if you realize this happens on any predictable cadence, you upgrade that skill to a scheduled task. And here's the first scheduled task that I think everyone should try. It's your daily brief that we talked about earlier. I have a scheduled task that just says run my daily brief skill every morning at 6 a.m. and send the output to my daily brief Slack channel. So now before I even wake up, Claude runs this on its own and then posts that short brief to my Slack. Then as I go on my morning walk, everything is already there for me. Today's top priorities, anything that's overdue, and then what to focus on first. And depending on the work, you can give it a quick look on your own time, or you can just have the results sent straight to where it needs to go. For example, you might want to automate a team updates email that just shares a high-level overview of where all the current projects are at. So now a lot of your work runs on its own, and that's great for your business and productivity. But the trap a lot of people fall into is this. What happens when your work changes? Is all of this just one more thing you have to constantly maintain? One more pile of administrative work? Well, that's exactly what the last level solves. Level 7. This is the one skill that makes your entire system automatically maintain and improve itself. I run it at the end of every work session, and it's the reason why I never have to go back and maintain any of this. So let me show you what it does. I can trigger it in two ways. I can type in the name of the skill, which is just close, or in my prompt, I can just say I'm done for the day, and Claude will just recognize that I want to close out my session. And this is the key thing about Claude and skills. You don't need to memorize all the names of your skills because Claude will automatically detect when each skill is relevant based on what you're prompting it. So the first thing the skill does is read through the entire session and then figure out what was worked on. So let's just say today was content. It'll give me a quick recap of what actually happened and then asks if anything is missing. And this recap is really important. It'll make sure that Claude is only saving the high value and important information that you want being fed back into the system. Then it asks me 3 questions one at a time. First, what did I get done? And once I tell it, it'll log that in the change log, which is just a running history of what got done. Second, what did I decide on and why? And this is one of the most important parts. Claude can see what I did today. It can read every file, it can see what's been edited, but it can't see the reason behind why I made those calls and took those actions. And that reasoning, the part that actually makes us good at what we do, is the thing that would just be disappear and not captured by Claude unless we take this time to write it down. So this simple practice becomes really powerful over time. For any key decisions, I give it the reasoning and then it saves these both to my decisions folder. And you can only imagine within a workspace, once you made 50 or over 100 decisions that have then been logged, it starts to get extremely good at applying your expertise and your way of thinking to your business. And third, did anything change about how I work? A new rule or a new preference? And if I give it one, this will go straight into the instructions so that Claude will follow it next time without me needing to repeat myself. Now watch where all of this lands. Remember those decisions and changelog folders sitting in the workspaces from level 2? This skill is what fills all of that information in. What I got done gets added to the changelogs. The decisions become new dated files in the decisions folder, which by the way are all tagged by workspaces so that Claude doesn't have to sift through every single decision and change that's happened across your business. It can just focus on whatever part of your business that you're working on at that moment. And then it does one more thing on its own. It rewrites the current state file. That's the one that tracks what's true across my business right now. Then it shows me the update, asks if it looks right. If I approve it, it'll save all the files as is. So in just 3 minutes at the end of each of your workdays, you can make sure that your AI setup is compounding and continuously getting smarter. And my favorite part about setting this all up is that now I can run everything from my phone. I like to start my mornings with a walk. So in the morning, I can just open my brief that my scheduled task has already left for me in my Slack. It ran through my priorities, any urgent emails, tasks, or anything overdue. And it ends with my mins, my most important next step for the day. And for today, that was to work on my tutorial that I'm working on of how I turned my Mac Mini into a 24/7 AI assistant that I can control from my phone. And since it's connected to my video database in Notion, I can see exactly what the status of the video script is. And if I agree that's the right focus, I can just use my voice and ask Claude where we left off and what the script's biggest gaps currently are. And it also is connected to all my files, so it can pull up everything I've saved on the video, things like the outline, my references, and any build notes. I knew when I was building out my Mac Mini setup that I wanted to make a video about it, so I already had very detailed build notes. And honestly, sometimes it just gives me way too much information. I just type in mins ? And it'll just boil everything down to the next possible action. And if you've worked with AI, you know that sometimes AI can be extremely extra, and it can be a lot to read through. So usually I just start out with some main ideas and help get them organized and figure out what are the main points of what I want to say, what do I agree with what's being said out there, where do I disagree, what's my recommendation for people. And I really recommend walking paired with voice mode. I think it's really really underrated. But we speak 3 to 5 times faster than we currently type, and I find out that our tone and our voice is more natural when we just say them out loud while we're walking around, as opposed to when we're sitting down in a focus session trying to type out our ideas. And here's how much of the handoff process that Claude is able to handle. Claude creates the Google Doc, notes any visual ideas that I mentioned, updates the video's entry in my Notion content database, and then even sends a Slack message to my video editor along with the Google Doc link as well as a short project brief. Take a second to look at everything that fired there. There was the AI brain, the connectors, the databases, the skills, the plugin, and the scheduled tasks that help me just start my day by getting right to work. And then of course we have the close skill, which just makes the entire system self-improving. Honestly, my favorite part about this whole shift is that we're able to be more on the go and running our systems. Knowledge work is shifting. We're moving from being doers that handle tasks end to end to being the directors of work. And by directing, I mean nailing down a clear vision to give your AI and then reviewing the output and exercising your judgment. What a lot of people in the industry are calling taste, and it's really just being able to tell what is high quality and what isn't. And that takes time to develop. Here's a quick recap of what we covered. We have the 3 modes of Claude. 99% of you should just be using Claude Cowork for your work. It's the same powerful AI engine powering Claude Code, but it's just wrapped in an interface that's friendly for non-engineers. 2, your AI brain. So Claude's answers are grounded in your specific business instead of generic public information. 3, we have connectors, so it reaches the data sources, all of your apps and databases. 4, skills, so your repetitive work can just run in a simple command. 5, plugins, so one person's setup can be shared with the entire team without instantly breaking. 6, we have scheduled tasks, so the work is getting done without waiting on you. And then 7, self-improving, so the whole thing is getting smarter and more useful to you every session. And by the way, all of these levels combined are what's called your AI operating system. And if you build it the right way, you can take this entire setup with you and then import it into any AI tool. If you want a step-by-step walkthrough of how to build your AI OS with all the free template files, you should definitely check out this next video. It shows you how to install my entire Claude OS for your Cowork setup and then customize it for your business. That's it for this one, and I'll see you on the next one.